back to my channel. I am Veronica with Nurturing Connections Homeschool, where I share tools and resources to help you connect with what matters most. Now, in my last video, I shared a term update for our homeschool, and I also talked a little bit about 5 in a row and how I was using it with my second grader. Some of you commented that you wanted to find out a bit more, so I thought I'd share kind of what we've done in the past, what 5 in a row is, and how I'm using it this year as well. Now, I was a bit hesitant on doing this because I do have the older version of 5 in a row, and so they've updated everything, and I'll link that below. So if you want to see some of the differences or just kind of how it looks a little bit better, they're providing a few more resources, you can go ahead and check that out, but I'll share what I've seen along the way and how it's worked out for us anyway. So 5 in a row is a curriculum that centers around children's literature. So there are different volumes where you would get unit studies for different picture books or children's books. Now, there is 5 in a row, and there's also before 5 in a row. And so before 5 in a row is more catered toward 2 to 5 year olds, depending on your child. This one will take you up through the elementary years, and they now have beyond 5 in a row, which is more for the middle school level. So the unit studies are centered on chapter books instead of picture books. So in each volume, you can see the specific titles in the table of contents that they focus on in that particular volume. So what you do is you would pick a book, and then that particular book would be read 5 times in a row. And so this repetition helps the child not only understand the basic storyline, but through those repetitions, they also get to identify different literary elements. They get to look at the geography. They just get to go deeper into their understanding of that text and all the learning that it embodies. So I'll share some examples with you in just a bit, but here are the basic titles. Like I said, we own many of these titles. They are just basically beautiful literature, and so we've enjoyed having these on our bookcases. This is Who Owns the Sun on Slavery, an excellent text. The Clown of God, Storm in the Night. You'll notice that these books are filled with diverse characters, different parts or characters from different parts of the world. You have poetry as well. There's Robert Frost, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Grandfather's Journey, How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World, and so forth. So we have a number of them. They're all over our house as well. Here's another one, Cranberry Thanksgiving. Now this one, Blueberries for Salt, is actually from before 5 in a row. So we used it a little bit in the younger years, and then we definitely used it in those elementary years. And basically you have these great books, these great pieces of literature, you read them 5 times, and each and every day you focus on something different. And so that's where the unit study component comes in. So I'm gonna go ahead and share with you an example here on the rag coat. And you will see the general breakdown here where it gives you a focus on social studies geography. You have social studies Appalachian culture. This particular one also targets social studies human relationships, funerals, and mourning. And then for language, it talks about stories, and it also gives you, in this particular case, other books that have to do with that same topic. So you can kind of read a few more books that expand their understanding of that topic. Then it has different art activities and lessons. So this one focuses on viewpoint, the warm palette or color palette, facial expressions, quilts. And then for mathematics, it focuses on geometric shapes. For science, it focuses on coal and natural fabrics. And so that would be it for the rag coat as an example. We've also done the story about Ping, and I will share that a little bit with you as well. That is on page 12 here. This one has for social studies, relationships and discernment, geography, the geography of China. So we got to talk about that, dive into that. Culture, we looked at literature. What is a classic story? What is fiction? what are literary devices such as repetition, and then in art they looked at medium, drawing water, viewpoint, unity of theme through subject, composition. Math, counting skills. For science, it was animal kingdom, buoyancy, health and safety, and reflection of light. So in this particular text, what you get is a paragraph or two explaining what the activity is. What is it that you're going to target here? What are you going to focus on? And how can you best do that? From here, this is mainly like a springboard. From here, you go as deep as you'd like or as shallow as you'd like. You can cover every single thing on here, or you can pick and choose the ones that work for you. You can add on to it. You can go to Pinterest and type in 5 in a row, and you'll just get a number of different ideas and activities and ways to work through those particular lessons with those particular books. Now, as an example, for me personally, when I did it the first time around, I just piecemealed it as I went along. So we were reading about the story about peeing, for example, and I decided when we're talking about stories, for example, it dealt with story structure and sequencing. So I just made my own little cards, and it had just different events from the story. And then the kids just read through them and sorted them out and put them in sequential order. So this was just one way of doing it. When it had to do with drawing the water, I just drew my own little pings there, and then the kids would just draw the water. We did a little experiment with buoyancy where we pulled in objects to see which ones would float and which ones would not float. And then as we studied the science piece, we went out to a local park and we fed the ducks there. We fed them little peas, and we talked about why we don't want to give them bread because it can affect their tummies. And so we gave them frozen peas, and they loved that. They got to see the ducks. They actually saw a nest with little eggs, and it was just such a rich experience. We had also been studying in our other curriculum at that time ducks as well. So we did some experiments with how the ducks have oily feathers that allows the water to just float off their backs. So I took a paper bag and I cut out little ducklings from them. And on one of them, we covered it with oil, and on the other one, we didn't. And then we used a dropper to put drops of water on each one. And they could see that the oily one allowed the water to just run off of it easily, whereas the other one absorbed that water. So we added that on, just ideas that came to us through that inspiration from this particular text. We were just able to enjoy that book and really take it as deep as we wanted it to go. Another thing that I've done this past year is starting to create lap books. And so I went ahead and created this one called The Rag Coat. And for this particular book, I just use the inspiration in here to create these particular printouts. So this is available on my website for free. If you haven't visited just yet, it's at nurturingconnections.com. If you click at the top right, it'll say member freebies. You can sign in or sign up for free. Do not worry about spam. I'm not interested in spamming you. I just want to share the resources I have here and anything else I have along the way. And once you click in there, you'll have access to all of my printable library and what is available there. So you can download it and print it out as much as you need to or would like. So for Rag Coat, what I did here is I put together this for that art lesson where it was on a palette of colors. And so in the Rag Coat, let me pull that up. You'll notice that they used a very warm color palette. So we talked about what those colors meant, what mood was instilled in the reader, why do you think the author chose those colors? And then you'll see here, I went ahead and included the examples from 5 in a row. So it asked if you were writing a story about a trip to the moon, what color palette would you use? If you're writing a story about a jungle adventure, what color palette would you use? This one's about a ballerina girl, and then this one is about a beach trip. So gets them thinking about those different color palettes and how the artist and the illustrator uses those colors in order to share the story. We also talked about facial expressions here, and so I made this little fold out where she could practice drawing different facial expressions. And so we use some of the examples again from 5 in a row, being surprised or sad, in this case happy, upset, and so forth. We talked about the Appalachian region, the culture itself. So again, that was part of the social studies lesson there. And so I went ahead and put together a quilt here, and she looked through the book as we read it and drew different things that were a part of that Appalachian culture. So this is actually a wood stove right here. These are the Appalachian Mountains. She drew the snowflakes because of the snow. And that is a rocking chair and so forth. So she was able to explore that based on her understanding. We also looked at pictures of the Appalachian Mountains. We looked on the internet for that, and they went ahead and drew their own pictures of the Appalachian Mountains there. And then we talked about where they were, the geography of it. So I went ahead and put together this printout, and they colored the different states and then drew in the mountains on the map there. Then she also went ahead and took this coat that I put on there and drew her own rag coat with her own stories on there. So she drew her pets on here. This was a little lizard that she had for a while. And then just different memories that she had that were a part of her own coat. We also talked about the Joseph's coat of many colors, which was mentioned in 5 in a row. And then we talked about geometric shapes in mathematics, and she went ahead and put together her own little quilt there with the different shapes and so forth. We talked about a lesson learned, and so we went ahead and put the theme in here. We talked about coal. We watched a video and Answers in Genesis on that, but she drew the coal. And then we talked about natural fabrics, and we glued on the cotton and a piece of linen and so forth. So that was our lap book. What I liked about this is we were gonna hole punch this, put this in a binder, and then keep our lap books in there in one place where we can store them for memory keeping. Now, that is a general kind of breakdown of what you can do if you choose to do a lap book. There are other options like I've done, like I said, just did it on the fly. There are things that you can pull up on the internet. It will be as flexible or as in-depth as you'd like it to be. The only other thing I do want to add on here is the Bible supplement. So when I did this with my kids the first time around, one of my friends had lent me the Bible supplement. So I had it alongside this. And in there, it had specific scriptures that tied into these stories and specific biblical activities that I could connect it with. So I really, really liked that piece because it's good literature. It shares truth. And so being able to tie that truth back to God's word was so, so valuable. So I really, really liked that supplement. I used it the entire time I was using it, and then I handed it back once we were done with it. But it is something that I highly recommend if you want to make sure to tie that in, and that's something you need a little bit more support with. Now that I'm going through it another time with my daughter, it's just something that we're talking about naturally. I've also, where we put a lesson learned, we also talked about a scripture that would tie into this, such as do unto others as you would have them do to you, love your neighbor as yourself, and so forth. So you can organically tie that in to make it suit the needs of your family. Now, we only have volume 1 because it was so rich and there are a lot of books in here, but had we chosen to continue, then there are more volumes where you can purchase more and more books. Now, in the appendix of the book, what it does have is kind of a general breakdown of how you could organize this. Like if you wanted to do one of these every single week, you could break it all down and finish by January, this entire volume. For us, it's something we do once or twice a month because we're reading so many other books. So this is not just our sole curriculum, although it can stand alone if that is what you choose to use. For us, it's more of a supplement, something we enjoy on top of everything else. And so we're using it how we see fit. Now, these are story discs that the child would draw in a little story representation of that book. So it would be like a duck for peeing or a rag coat for the rag coat. And then these get cut out and placed on the map. And so we do have a map on the wall where the kids will place these story discs, and we can talk about the story that took place in China versus Japan versus the Appalachian Mountains, like I just mentioned. And so they can have that visual representation to help them with their understanding of geography. Then in the back in the appendix, it also has like a planning sheet where it shows you how you can break down these activities each day, and it gives you a blank version. And then there are some activities here. For example, there was this quilt pattern for the rag coat that I could have used along with a few other activities. There aren't much in this older version, but the newer ones actually have a few more items in there for you that are already done. So you'll have those printouts available if you choose to use the newer version. But other than that, it's a great curriculum. We've really enjoyed it. We have such sweet memories of it all. And it's something we're going to continue with. What I do want to do is actually look at that middle school version and kind of check it out for my older kids now. So it's something that is in the works and a possibility for next semester. We're kind of locked into this term right now with everything going on with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, but it's definitely something that I'll be looking into further. So other than that, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please make sure to drop them below. I appreciate you watching. Please give me a thumbs up on your way out, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.